Hi, today I'm going to talk to you about the do's and don'ts of left hand technique, and stick around till the end because I'm going to share with you an exercise that had an enormous effect on my technique, and I'm sure it will have the same on yours. So I'm sure that just like myself, you have also experienced pain, suffering, tiredness, and just overall fatigue in your left hand while practicing or playing a gig or rehearsing. Now, more than likely, the reason for that is bad posture, making your hand do things that are not natural to your fingers, to the overall posture of your hand, your wrist, your forearm, and actually your whole apparatus coming from your shoulder downwards. So I really want to help you overcome these issues and share with you the wisdom that I have received from my really, really amazing teachers, and also stuff that I learned over the years the hard way as well. Okay, so first thing first, let's just compare having flat fingers versus the natural curvature of your fingers. Okay, so I'm gonna grab my right hand with my flat fingers here like that, and I'm gonna try to keep it there. I'm gonna apply some pressure to that right hand, and I can just pull it out like that. That means you're not really in control of your grip. Okay, now let's try the same thing with curved fingers. Now, you don't have to really claw your fingers, nothing like that. Just the natural curve of your fingers. Okay, let's do that. And now watch this. I'm gonna apply the same amount of pressure that I applied before. And yes, okay, it still comes away, but I can feel that it's a lot harder for my right hand to move away from that grip. That means I have a lot more control with my hand, with the natural curve of my fingers there. Okay, like that. And also that is because our power from our shoulders straight through your arm, your forearm, wrists, hand, everything, your fingers, culminates in your fingertips, right there. And so that's where you're most powerful, and that's where you have the most control in your fingers to grab something or to play your instrument. So the very first thing that I really truly recommend to you is start to work on applying your curved fingers to the fingerboard and not flat fingers. Now, it's one thing for me to tell you to play with curved fingers, but just how do we do that actually? So for me, a really good way to do that is when you start out with all of this, is to just put your hand in its natural posture. Don't do anything. You don't have to do anything to your hand. Just put it down and rest it on your knee like that. That's all you need to do. And then the next thing you do is just bring that hand up by not actually moving your elbow. Don't really move your elbow. Your elbow doesn't have to go up or down or anywhere. Just leave it where it is. And basically, you just lift your hand up, lift your forearm up like that to the fingerboard. And now if I do this, then you're gonna see how nicely that curvature of your fingers will let your fingertip get onto the strings. Look at that. Just like that. So that's a very important thing. And just one little side note on there is that don't push your palm out like this. Don't push your palm into the bottom of the neck there, okay? Never do that, because that would be a cramp in your hand. It really isn't a great idea to choke your instrument and really press the hell out of those strings. It's, first of all, it's not going to be good for your hand. And secondly, your sound will suffer. You'll never get a nice, warm, big sound if you choke your strings like that. You'll have a pretty harsh sound that way, And so there is this little thing that I've learned from my double bass teachers. Actually, all my teachers told me the same thing, that what you can do is you can just place any of your fingers anywhere on the fingerboard. And before you would actually look at this, before I would press down on the string, I'm just holding the string and I'll start to press it down. And once you hear a sound, once you hear a nice, decent sound, that's all the pressure you need to apply. And that is so minute. That is such a small amount of pressure, and that is very different from really choking your instrument and applying a lot of pressure to one note. The problem is with that is that, first of all, well, you're going to overuse your hand, you're going to overuse your muscles, you'll get tired much faster, your sound is not going to be that good, and also when you do that, then it's very difficult, or much more difficult, to play from note to note than if you have a nice and light technique and just lightly place your fingers on that fingerboard. Okay, see, this is so easy, you know, when you just apply that little bit of pressure that's needed and nothing more. You can play so much more, and you can play so much more efficiently with a lot less effort put in and with much better results. And that's what you should always aim for. So one of the things I've seen a million times is that we play a couple of notes, and then as we go, we tuck our fingers under the fingerboard like that. And in extreme cases, I mean, it could really, I have seen some really interesting things over the years, you know, like this, and, you know, like just putting your pinky down there, taking it away from the strings, taking it away from the fingerboard is such a bad idea, you know. I mean, first of all, you need to keep everything on a fingerboard so you have playability. So if you have to play those notes, it will take you no time to get to them. If you put your fingers behind the fingerboard, then you'll have to dig them out of there and then come up and place them on the notes. So keep everything on the fingerboard. You know, look at that. Those are just little hammers on those strings, those fingers. And they can just play whatever they need to do. They're right there to do it, you know. So that's the first thing. Please do not put your fingers behind the fingerboard or away from the string. As an extension of that, actually, what I really want you to do and try at home is that always keep your fingers hovering over the string that you're playing. Now that won't work sometimes because, let's say, if you play chords or just 10th intervals or something, you have to have your fingers allocated to different strings. But in general, bass playing, when you're just playing, you're just playing a line, then you can allow your fingers to just be on that string where you're playing the notes you're playing at the time. So I'm playing on the A string, everything is there. I'm going to go on to the D string. Now everything continues and follows onto that D string. Let's say I'm going to have to go on to the G string, then everything follows and goes onto that string and back and forth like that. And a little scale, this little E minor scale here becomes so much easy to play. And that will allow you to play bass lines, little solo fills, all sorts of things, once you actually get to grip with this really efficient and nice way of playing. So keeping everything on the fingerboard. Let's say a different scale, something else, doesn't matter. As you go, just keep everything on the fingerboard. It just makes everything so much easier, you know. So another thing I see very often is that people break their joints. I have done that as well. All of this stuff that I'm telling you, I'm really coming from my own experience. Breaking your joints in general, you know, with or without playing is not a good idea at all anyways. But when you're playing, that feels so uncomfortable. And in fact, let me just see if I can play a groove with some broken joints here and there. Okay, so let's see. I mean, you can kind of do it, but it's really uncomfortable. So let me see if I can just play that with my normal good posture. Yeah, that's much easier that way. So that's a very important thing. Do not break your joints. There is just one more little thing here, and that is to don't take your fingers away too much from the fingerboard. You know, keep everything there in close quarters to the strings. Okay. Again, it's the same principle as when you tuck your finger in the back of the fingerboard. Same again, if you take it too far from the string, you'll have all of that time to bring that finger back to the fingerboard and play that note. So now if I do this, I'm gonna have this will take a lot more effort to play from this A to this B flat, like that. Had I kept my second finger on there, look very close to the fingerboard like that, look at that, yeah, and that's all the effort it takes. That's all it is, versus this. Now you might say, well, okay, but that's fine. I mean, I like to play like that, and I kind of like to whack my finger onto the strings, and that's my playing style. I'd say, okay, that's fine, but just consider this. In an hour rehearsal, or in a 2-hour gig, or in a 2-hour rehearsal, how many times will you do this? You know, you'll save yourself hundreds of times of doing this big movement versus just a very nice little light, you know, keeping everything nearby and close to the strings and everything playable. Okay, that is just so important. You know, your playing, the efficiency of your playing will just go through the roof. Stuff that you wouldn't have been able to play before, it will be available to you because simply you will just be able to get to it. You know, as I'm just talking to you, I can just play all sorts of stuff here because my fingers are so close to the fingerboard. So it takes no effort to slice up and down the strings and play all sorts of different stuff. Okay, so this is also a very important thing. Keep your fingers really close to the fingerboard. Now, as promised, here is an exercise which actually comes from a chord. It comes from a dominant 7 sharp 11 chord, which ignore it if you don't know what that means at the moment. But basically, the way you can play this chord is also a very, very good finger exercise, you know. And so it really works your first, your third, your second and fourth fingers in this kind of varied way where you play your 1 and 3 on one string and the 2 and 4 on the next string. So just for those guys that already know this chord, I'm gonna play an A7 sharp 11 chord. So the 7th will be a G, the A will be the root, the C sharp is the 3rd of this chord, and the D sharp is the sharp 11 of this chord, and then you have the G again. So to play through this chord, you can come from the 7th of it and you can just play a G, an A, and a C sharp, and a D sharp. And notice how you played your first finger, your third finger, and on the next string, your second finger and fourth finger. Now, these are the kind of things that you're not going to be able to play with that technique too much anymore, you know, because you are just required to keep everything there, not out there, not behind the instrument, nowhere else but where your fingers belong on the instrument, on the strings, right next to the strings, right, hovering right above the strings. Okay, so that's your 1, 3, 2, 4. Now, I'm going to place my first finger on the C sharp here, on the 4th fret, and I'm going to play a 1, 3 on the C sharp and D sharp, and I'm going to play my 2 and 4 on the G and A. So I just changed position. Basically, I'm playing an inversion of this chord, you know, from the 3rd all the way up to the root of this chord. And then I'm going to play it again. I'm going to place my first finger onto the G here, and I'm going to play exactly the same I've done an octave lower. So I'm going to play the G to the A, 1 to 3rd, and the C sharp to the D sharp 2 to 4. Like I said, if you're beginning with your playing, don't worry about this chord, or don't worry about the C sharp and the D sharp and the A and G and all of that. It doesn't really matter. What matters is this is a great finger exercise in the same time as it's a great sounding arpeggio of a chord, actually, like that. Okay, so G, A, C sharp, D sharp, C sharp, D sharp, G, A, and then G, A, C sharp, D sharp again. And then when we just do it backwards, you know, let's just turn around and come back. So 4, 2, 3, 1. Now put your 4 on the A, 4, 2, 3, 1 again. Now put your 4 on the D sharp here, on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fret there. So D sharp 4, 2 on the C sharp, A 3, and 1 on the G. And that is your exercise. Play it on the higher strings first, because it will be easier to play up there. So just play your G, A, C sharp, D sharp, like that. and back. And really slowly. It doesn't have to be fast. In fact, the slower you do it, the better. And then maybe switch, come from this A. And then switch again. Like that, okay? And eventually, when you're comfortable and your fingers really start to fall into place, then play the whole thing. So one time from the G, one time from the C sharp, one time from the G, and back, one time from the D sharp with your fourth finger there, one time from the A, and then from the D sharp, and just go up and down. Like that, okay? That really is a great exercise. And it will do a lot of good to your fingers, you know, to be light, to not to have a lot of pressure, to not to apply a lot of pressure to your strings, and to start to actually be able to move your fingers around, you know, to have finger independence as well. This is a really, really nice chord to do that with. Now, I'm sure that everything we've discussed in your video will help your technique. And don't forget, practice slowly, you know, practice this exercise, make up some other exercises, you know, and just play them slowly, and always remember these very, very important and crucial factors that we have discussed today about your left hand technique.